A mysterious new artist named ZOEY808 popped up in early 2025, and he's been gaining serious traction, so it's got people wondering, is this guy an industry plant? And who the f is ZOEY808 anyway? It's Diamond Pistols. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe. Okay, but in all seriousness, it really is Diamond Pistols, and I know that some of you may be thinking, well, then who the f is Diamond Pistols? And how do you even know that it's him? See the matching tattoos? Or the fact that they both use the same home studio? Or how about the fact that they're both really close with both bbno Money and Young Gravy? He clearly isn't trying to keep it a secret, but this video is less about solving a mystery and more about understanding Diamond Pistol's journey to the formation of ZOEY808 in order to figure out if he's actually an industry plant or someone who genuinely earned their success. So let's get into it. So first of all, this dude goes way back, and he was even called, quote, bass music's new prodigy in 2012. Diamond Pistol's real name is Christian Dold, and while he has made a name for himself in recent years as a platinum hitmaker, he has deep roots in the dubstep scene, and he even ghost produced some enormous EDM hits that you most likely know very well. But well before all that, he was just a regular kid born in Carmel, California, but grew up in Seattle. His first introduction to the world of music came when his parents put him in piano lessons, which he had mixed feelings about.
I started playing piano when I was really young, always hated it. My mom basically forced me to do it. I loved music. I just hated I hated reading music. I hated theory. I had a really cool piano teacher though, who kind of exposed me to a lot of music that I wouldn't have heard otherwise. I grew up in Seattle, and it was a lot of Seattle indie bands, Minus the Bear, Death Cab for Cutie, and he would always take me to concerts when I was growing up.
That's great. Were these classical piano lessons?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
And, okay, that's awesome.
But I hated classical piano.
Yeah.
So he at one point he's like, man, fuck it. I'm not gonna make you read music. I'm just gonna teach you Coldplay songs by rote.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, cool.
Later on, he started adding more instruments to the mix on his own volition, with the first being guitar. One of his neighbors taught him how to play Blink-182 songs on the guitar, and he eventually joined his church band, which was his first experience playing music in a collaborative manner. Right around this time, he bought a used drum set off eBay, and he started to learn how to play those, but it was short-lived because his parents got a divorce and he moved into an apartment with his dad, so he had to get rid of the drums in order to not piss off the neighbors. This sort of worked in his favor though, because instead he started to get into producing, which was a much quieter way of exploring his musical interests.
I had a friend who was trying to be a rapper in high school, and I was and I kind of learned about just making beats, and I was like, this is kind of tight, the fact that you can just in a laptop make a whole song.
In some interviews, he said that he started out with GarageBand, but in a UKF interview, he said it was Logic. But either way, he switched to Ableton very early on.
I saw a YouTube video when I was 15 of deadmau5 using Ableton, and I was one of those people in the comments that was what program is this?
No, you were that guy?
It was around this time that he first learned of dubstep when one of his friends shared Rusko's Hammer Time on Facebook, and he was immediately hooked. Throughout high school, he immersed himself in the local scene in whatever ways he could, including going to underground drum and bass parties, and eventually going to his first full-blown show, which featured deadmau5 as the headliner and Die Antwoord and Skrillex as the openers. This was also right before Skrillex blew up too, so he wasn't very well known at the time, but Christian was super intrigued by his set. He was so intrigued that he decided that he was going to start making dubstep, and he was active in various forums, and he even started a producer/DJ group with some of his high school friends. According to him, they played, quote, a couple shitty shows, but nothing ever really happened with the group. Though apparently one time they were offered $200 to play all the way across the country in Maine, and they countered asking $500 instead, but were then ghosted. Right around the time when he was graduating from high school in 2012, things started to get a little more serious. He chose the name Diamond Pistols either during or right after his senior year of high school, and there's a pretty cool story about how this came about. He used to listen to a Seattle-based duo called Fresh Espresso, and their biggest song is named Diamond Pistols, which is where he got the idea to use it as his artist name. But he ended up hitting a snag with the name very quickly because just a half year after deciding to use that name, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 was released, and it had a feature in the game called Diamond Pistols. Apparently this was a very desirable feature in the game, so a bunch of YouTube videos started popping up telling people how to get Diamond Pistols in Call of Duty, which effectively buried him in search results. Regardless of his search engine troubles, he found success very quickly as his remix of Ace Hood's Bugatti got support from Steve Aoki, Diplo, Carnage, and even DJ Snake, who messaged him on Twitter saying, "OMG, that remix of Bugatti, I almost shit myself."
I woke up in a new
He played his first real show as Diamond Pistols that same year when he closed for Trolley Snatcha in Seattle. In the fall of 2012, he went to Gonzaga University to study finance, and he soon after dropped his first official release, the Wild Style EP, originally released on Ultra Gore Recordings, but it was re-released the following year on Firepower Records. Throughout college, he continued to release tracks and play one-off fly-out dates for shows.
I remember like my first show I ever played when I was like 18 that it was out of state was like Denver, and they offered me like $1,000 and I was like, I am rich.
This Denver show would go on to play a massive role in the way that his life would unfold after graduating from college. One of the other guys on the lineup for that show is named Kilogram, who was also one half of Milo and Otis, and when Diamond Pistols was about to graduate, Kilogram was looking for a roommate in Los Angeles, so Diamond Pistols decided to abandon his job search for a finance position and instead move to Los Angeles to give music a shot. But here's the crazy thing about it. He had been interning at an investment firm called Signia Capital in Spokane, where he researched stocks, and he actually really enjoyed it. But his parents recognized how talented he was with music, and they told him that they think that he should pursue that rather than finance if that's something that he would like to do. So basically the polar opposite of how most parents feel about their kid pursuing a career in a creative field. Anyway, he moved to Los Angeles with the intention of having his own solo DJ career, but other opportunities arose and he found himself on a different path. One day, Diamond Pistols was browsing SoundCloud and he came across a track from Phil Good, which was actually Phil's very first song. If there's any OG Kid fans watching this, then you probably know Phil Good from Kid's 2017 track, Lose Myself. Anyways, Diamond Pistols messaged Phil on SoundCloud and they found out that they both lived on the same street, so they met up and started working together. Phil was roommates with some of the guys from Cheat Codes, so Diamond Pistols started producing for them, which led to him landing a publishing deal, and he sort of just found himself in the world of producing for other people. However, he was still maintaining the solo artist aspect of Diamond Pistols, at least to a degree, releasing maybe 1 to 2 tracks a year. The first time that he went on the Willie Joy podcast in 2018, he was clearly at a crossroad where he wasn't sure if he was going to lean harder into being a solo artist or a behind-the-scenes producer, but he said that he was fine with either. Though he did make it sound like he wanted to pursue being a solo artist first, and then later could fall back into the behind-the-scenes work once he was older and had a family. But that's not really how it worked out. Granted, he was almost strictly a solo artist in the early dubstep days of Diamond Pistols, but then he found himself doing session work, and now he's balancing that with a solo career as ZOEY808. So I guess he never really fully committed to either side, and it's clear that he just loves making music regardless of its broader context. So it should come as no surprise that in 2019, he teamed up with his friend Sneak to form a house music duo called Space Rangers, and I actually talk a little bit about them in my Getter video from last year. They've dropped a handful of tracks over the years, and they had a big win in 2022 when their track The Move was used in an iPhone commercial. The year before that, in 2021, Diamond Pistols made his first ever track with bbno Money called Help Herself, and it was a big hit. That song went on to change the course of his career in a very tangible way, as it established a relationship that would lead to many more hit tracks, with Diamond Pistols being behind all of bbno Money's biggest hits. The first song they made together that really popped off on a huge scale was Edamame, which also featured Rich Brian, which got so big that it landed a spot in a Super Bowl commercial.
Have a blast with tropical lime-flavored Mountain Dew Baja Blast. In stores everywhere.
I too am having a blast.
On the Producer Points podcast, Diamond Pistols revealed that he first met Rich Brian at Getter's house, of all places. He also met Young Gravy right around that time.
So I've been friends with this manager, Henley, for years.
Yeah.
And like, when Henley signed Gravy, I didn't even know who he was at the time.
Yeah.
He's like, yo, I just signed this dude, Young Gravy, you should work with him. And like, he brought me to like his release party, and Henley was like, yo, this is my boy Christian, like, you guys got to work together. And he just kind of like wrote it off. He's like, I'm not going to work with some kid my manager told me to. And he works a lot with Baby No Money, and Baby No Money was like, yo, you got to work with Christian. He's fired. He's like, really? All right, bet. Like, for sure. And now, like, I work all the fucking time with him.
Yeah,
We're like
that's
neighbors
great.
now.
So Diamond Pistols has since gone on to produce quite a few tracks for Young Gravy, with one of the biggest being C'est La Vie. The crazy thing about that track is that it was actually made on the same day as Edamame.
So speaking of Young Gravy, we're going to talk about one of his biggest songs. I think my favorite song of his, because it's just fucking groovy. C'est La Vie, also featuring Baby No Money and Rich Brian.
You want to know why it's featuring Baby No Money and Rich Brian?
Sure, tell.
Because we made it the same day as Edamame.
No fucking way.
Yeah, it's got to be like my most productive day of all time.
Dude, I've heard that on this podcast so many times. Where it's like we did 2 or 3 hit songs in the same day. It's like sometimes you're just feeling it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I felt like fucking Ed Sheeran that day when he wrote like Shape of You and like 2 other hits that day, you know?
What's even crazier is that Diamond Pistols wanted to call it a day before they made C'est La Vie, but Young Gravy convinced him to at least give it a try, and obviously it worked out big time. So fast forward to today, and Diamond Pistols has a star-studded body of work as he has produced for countless artists like Dubs, 4B, DJ Snake, Flosstradamus, Lil Pump, Hollywood Undead, Austin Mills, plus all the other artists mentioned in this video, and so many more. Clearly, he has had quite the career as a behind-the-scenes producer, but in early 2025, he decided to make a return to his roots as a solo artist, except this time with a whole new alias, ZOEY808. The faceless ZOEY808 started posting videos on Instagram and TikTok, and soon after started dropping remixes on SoundCloud with a sound that is self-described as somewhere between bass house and UKG.
Oh my god, Zoe. Begging on the knees to be popular.
As his presence grew, a lot of people thought that it was Crankdat's side project, and honestly, they do kind of have the same eyebrows, so I can see why people thought that, but no, it's definitely not Crankdat. This was confirmed when ZOEY808 played his debut set at Electric Forest, where he posted a picture with Crankdat, fueling even more speculation about his identity. Even more industry plant accusations were thrown at him when he brought Baby No Money out on stage at Electric Forest, plus the fact that his first ever gig was at such a major festival. But now that you have a rundown on the history of Diamond Pistols, it all should make sense, and pretty much all industry plant claims are irrelevant, but I would love to hear what you think.
I wanted to talk about this actually. What do you think about industry plants and the term industry plant in general?
Yeah,
Do you think industry plants exist?
I mean, it depends on how you define the term, I guess. I mean, if we're saying that industry plants means sort of a manufactured artist that the industry just sort of finds a pretty face and, you know, puts a secret team behind them.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's happened here and there. Probably all over.
When you scratch the surface of the music industry and you get your first glimpse into it, like working in the music industry, you see stuff where it's like, oh, like I didn't realize this person like had producers or writers working with him. Like, like, oh, Drake doesn't write all of his own songs. And like, it's easy to take that, and it's kind of like a slippery slope to think that no one does anything for themselves in the music industry. And it's like, and
especially so many of those theories come, and I'm sorry if you are one of these people, but from bitter people who like haven't been able to make their own success.
Totally.
And then they're like, oh, well, I'm the same as this other guy. I just didn't have the resources they had, or I didn't have someone pushing me the way they had. And 99% of the time, that's not true.